Hey, what's up? This is Gary from Raz Rentals, and I have been dying to talk about this brand new NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fred Wolf Mouser pack, or Mouser set, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know how many Mousers are in here. 6-pack? Does that sound right? So I had to wait, extra long to get this because I had ordered 2 of these packs plus an Ultimate Foot Soldier. And NECA would not send me my 2 Mousers in the mail until they had the Ultimate Foot Soldier. It's all part of that shipping plan they have or whatever. They can't break up your order. They can only send everything to you at once. So for the past couple of weeks, I've been watching Facebook, people saying about how they got their Mousers and they were all awesome. And I was just sitting here all jealous. Like, when am I going to get mine? And then a couple days ago, I got a notification that said an order from NECA was on the way. And then I checked out the tracking, and it said that my order was already delivered to my house. I was like, holy crap, all on the same day? That was like the best shipping notification I've ever gotten. I've always been a big fan of the Mousers. I feel like their design is very unique, very Ninja Turtle-esque, like you don't see robots like this in other shows. These guys were only one episode of the show, but because they were in every single Ninja Turtle video game, they've been forever cemented into my memory. To me, when I think of Ninja Turtles, I think Foot Soldier, Shredder, Krang, Mousers, Bebop, Rocksteady. It's all together. And despite being on like a kid show, these things are gruesome. I mean, they have these sharp, pointy teeth that they're going to chomp and kill rats, and they try to eat the Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. Like, these things are dangerous. That kind of scare me a little bit. Now, you may be thinking, oh, geez, 1 episode? Boy, this is going to be a short video. Well, don't worry. I promise you, I will do whatever I can to stretch this video out as long as I possibly can. So let's get on with the review. Now, these guys were teased way back in July of 2020. You can see Mousers behind the Turtles in Time Baxter Stockman. And then we had to wait all the way until, I don't remember if it was December 2021 or if they were announced in January of 2022. I know I put my pre-order in January 22, and I got my shipment of these guys about a week ago, which is the end of June 2022. So not too long from pre-order to shipping, but long enough that you're like, I want my Mousers. They come packaged in the standard Ninja Turtle 2-pack design. This it looks very much like the Turtle Van, where you have the green on top and the yellow on the bottom. I was kind of hoping that they would have been released in one of the deluxe boxes, much like Muckman or Mondo Gecko. But I still think this is still uniform with everything else in this line, so I'm fine with it. It has a very nice window up front, where you can see a bunch of the Mousers. You can see some of the battle-damaged Mousers. There's a nice-looking, some art on the front here. Now, it's not done by Dan Elson, who does the deluxe boxes, but it's still just a pretty decently drawn Mouser. Nothing too special, nothing bad or anything like that, just perfectly mediocre. So on this side, you have a picture of these 2 Mousers, and I guess action shots. This one's funny how his one leg is forward and the other one's back. I like how this one looks, though. It looks like, like it's actually thinking and moving. And then on the other side, again, you have that Mouser where the back leg is bent back and the other one's forward. Then you have the Mouser down here with the sai stabbed into his head. Now, one of the things I will show in this video is some of the battle-damaged Mousers that are shown in the show. We'll see how many, if any of these specific parts match how they appeared on screen as they were dismembered and all that. On the back here, you have a very general description of the Ninja Turtles. Nothing about the Mousers at all. Over on this side, you have a nice shot of 2 Mousers standing side by side, and then some of the other accessories. I love how this rat right here is popping out, like he was swallowed. The Ninja Turtles got this Mouser, and then the rat's like, hey, I'm free now, all right. You get a videotape, you get a piece of pizza. Down at the bottom here, you have some pictures of the more recent Ninja Turtle action figures. These are all from 2022. Super Bebop, Mighty Rocksteady, Toka and Razar, which I still need to get, and Usagi Yojimbo, which I'm definitely going to get because I pre-ordered that from NECA, straight from NECA. Down on the bottom, it says right here that, the director is Randy Falk, and Trevor Zammit. And sculpt and fabrication is done by Brody Perkins and Trevor Zammit. I don't know how to pronounce people's names. I suppose I didn't have the best schooling growing up. All right, so now it's time for me to open these guys up, move them around, hopefully find that nothing is broken or damaged. And while I do that and get them ready, I will discuss a little bit about the Mousers' history, talk about the one episode that they appeared in, A Thing About Rats, and also talk about, some other places where the Mousers showed up. The Mousers only appeared in one episode of the Fred Wolf animated series. They appeared in the season 1 episode, A Thing About Rats. And because they only appeared in one episode, I thought it would be cool to compare that episode to the original Mirage Comics, as well as the first storyline that has the Mousers in the 2003 show. I thought it would be interesting because out of every episode in the Fred Wolf series, A Thing About Rats is probably the closest to any of them being an animated adaptation of a Mirage comic book. After that, episodes are kind of loosely inspired by Mirage, but, after season 1, Ninja Turtles pretty much has nothing to do with Mirage at all. And I figured I would talk about the 2 episodes from the 2003 show because, those episodes were heavily guided by Peter Laird. So those episodes are pretty much straight up adaptations of the Mirage, comic books. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how, you got the original one, how it was interpreted in the 80s show, and then how it was fully interpreted in the 2003 show. Way back in the Mirage Comics, the Mousers made their first appearance in issue 2. This issue came out in October of 1984. This is a second print that I have right here. And wow, check out that cover. That is pretty awesome looking. I bet there had to be a few people back in the day who probably looked at this and thought boy, check out that huge scary robot. Only to open it up and realize that holy crap, it's an army of little robots. On Peter Laird's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle blog, he says that he was the one who designed these nasty little rodent munchers. He even shared an early Mouser sketch, plus some Baxter and April concept designs. That is pretty sweet. What's really interesting is in another blog post, he shared that years before he co-created the Ninja Turtles with Kevin Eastman, he was developing a comic about a robotic rodent hunter named Mouser, or he was a Mouser. It never went anywhere beyond this initial sketch and summary, but it's really cool to see the origins that inspired the classic robotic menace we know as the Mousers. I really miss the days when Peter Laird used to post on his blog. Before Ninja Turtles was bought by Viacom, I used to love how Mirage was, accessible to fans. A bunch of these guys would have blogs you could, reply to, and it seemed like they would just, fill you in on so many of the behind-the-scenes info and happenings that were happening at Mirage Studios. It was cool back then. There was a human element that's kind of missing now that, Ninja Turtles is a part of this huge corporate machine. And that's funny because, you would think that back in the 80s, it seemed so corporate, and it wasn't, it was still owned by 2 guys, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Now, I don't know how, but I managed to score this issue maybe 15 years ago for only $7. And it is in immaculate shape. So I am not going to use this during my review of that issue because I don't want to mess that up. You kidding me? So I'll talk about this issue using my third printing because I have 2 of them. Okay. And, one of the coolest things about this third printing is just the cover. It's painted by Richard Corbin, and it is just an amazing piece of art, man. I think I scanned one of these just so I could have it on my computer. Everything looks awesome about this. I love Corbin's style. Everybody actually looks 3D, and I don't know. It's just a very cool looking issue cover, And then you got cool stuff happening inside. All right, so as this issue begins, and I should mention that there will be spoilers in this, all right? So, as the issue begins, the Turtles are watching a news interview with Baxter Stockman. Baxter is unveiling and demonstrating what his brand new rodent removal robots can do. Robots he calls Mousers. So what he does is he releases 5 rats in this maze, gives them a head start, and then he lets his one Mouser do its thing. In under 3 minutes, the Mouser successfully disposes of each one. Baxter says that the Mousers have enough storage to fit 5 average-sized rats. Ew, that's gross, man. Like, could you imagine having to clean out one of these things? You know, hopefully he implemented some kind of, like, bag for easy disposal. So here's where I should point out some details. Number 1, and something I had no idea until I was already a man in college. Baxter looked a little different than how he appeared in the Fred Wolf show. I can't put my finger on it exactly, but, oh, I know. It's because he's got shorter hair. You know, they really gave him longer hair in the Fred Wolf show. Not only that, but Baxter's personality is a lot different, too. The original Baxter Stockman was a competent and ruthless, evil genius. In the Fred Wolf series, they turned him into, like, the stereotypical goofy mad scientist. You know, his Mousers failed him, while the original Baxter succeeded with his Mousers. You know, he could have been a legit millionaire. But soon, we'll see how his massive ego longed for terror and destruction. This is the Baxter that we've had in every cartoon and comic book since the Fred Wolf series. Although I don't know if I would say that Baxter in the 2012 show is competent. He's more of like a science dweeb. This is Baxter's only appearance in Volume 1. He later returned and put his brain into a robot during Volume 2 so that he could escape and inject April with some nanobots or something. He also appeared in, I think 1 issue of Volume 4, as well as the Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Donatello miniseries, The Brain Thief. But, like, to be honest with you, I don't remember all that Baxter did in this miniseries. And to be quite honest with you, in Volume 4, they kind of built it up like something like cool and weird was happening, that Donatello was keeping Baxter alive in the sewers. And then I read Brain Thief and I was like, this was very, very disappointing. It just did not live up to my expectations. All right, so back on track. So you would think that this news lady up here is April O'Neil. But she's not. April is not a news lady in the Mirage comic books. April was Baxter's lab assistant. She co-programmed the Mousers to carry out their bloody rat conquest. All right, so, you know, at first, business is going well, and, you know, the Mousers are doing their thing, and Baxter is raking in the dough, but then April reads about some bizarre bank robberies in the newspaper. The police are completely baffled because the robbers cleanly and quickly tunneled through concrete and steel to reach the loot. Most shockingly of all, the tunnels are too small for any average-sized adult. April brings this to Baxter's attention. Hey, Baxter, do you think maybe some criminal mastermind stole and reprogrammed one of the Mousers? And that's when Baxter reveals that, no, no, that is not what's going on at all here. Baxter is criminally insane. He's a criminal mastermind. The city only gave him funds for 24 Mousers, but with the money he stole, now he's able to produce hundreds. He reveals to April that he is currently using the Mousers to partially tunnel through the foundations of some large and important buildings in the city. He plans on holding the city ransom, and if they refuse to pay him his money, he'll have the Mousers finish the job, which, you know, will cause the buildings to fall, killing innocents and wreaking havoc and terror across the land, right? So April asks Baxter, you know, like, why would you do all this when you could legitimately become a millionaire with the Mousers? And Baxter just responds and laughs at her that, you know, he doesn't care about the money. He just likes being evil because it's fun. You know, I love, you know, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird's art back in the 80s, but man, they could not draw a decent woman to save their lives. On a side note, have you seen Eastman's latest Elektra comic book? Man, now that is some awesome art, you know. Kevin has definitely been practicing drawing ladies. All right, so back on track, you know. It's funny here that April is wearing the jumpsuit, that they kept for the cartoon. She only wears this in this issue, and I don't even think she really wears it in issue 3. But they decided, no, April has got to wear this in every single episode of the Fred Wolf series. All right, so April runs, and then Baxter drops her in the sewer and sends a few Mousers to kill her. Slain by the very technological marvels which her computer skills made possible. That is a direct Baxter Stockman quote here. So just look at like all the detail here. Like look at all the drawing in the sewer and everything like that. Man, these, Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman really went above and beyond because these comic books were in black and white. So they put a bunch of detail in them. They added the duotone shading just to try to make it look interesting. And, by heavens it did. I mean, and look at there. Look at inside the Mouser's mouth. That just looks awesome. So here is where the turtles find April and they save her. Check that out. Breaking all these Mousers. So if you've watched the cartoon or you watched the movie or anything, you probably know what happens. April passes out and then the turtles have to carry her because, it would not be a turtle story if she didn't get, carried by the Ninja Turtles. She wakes up in the turtles' lair and that's when Splinter, tells her their origin and everything like that, which is just like, the 1990 movie and also the Fred Wolf cartoon. The biggest difference with the Fred Wolf series is she wasn't being chased by the Mousers. She was being chased by, Bebop and Rocksteady. And then in the movie, she was being attacked by the Foot Clan whenever, I guess they knocked her out. She didn't pass out when she saw the Ninja Turtles. All right, so while they're explaining all this to April, Baxter has already begun making his moves as a terrorist. Baxter threatens to topple one of the World Trade Center towers unless he's paid $20 million. Man, do you remember in the 80s when the thought of something like that seemed so impossible they could include it in such an absurd comic book storyline? Man, just to prove he means business, Baxter destroys an empty building. So, the guys in April see all this on TV and they decide, enough is enough. They gotta stop Baxter Stockman. And, without any resistance at all, they, arrive in his secret laboratory. They probably should have just killed him right here, I mean, Leo could have just cut his head off or something, but no. They fight with him a little bit. They try to grab a hold of him. And then Baxter Stockman, of course, pushes the self-destruct button, which instructs the Mousers to return to the lab, eating everything in sight, including Ninja Turtles, of course, Always the violent one, Raph decides to knock Baxter out, and Donnie tries to help April reprogram the Mousers to cancel out the self-destruct program. Earlier in this issue, Donatello was playing around with some computer circuitry. So even all the way back in issue 2, Donatello was the techie turtle. The other 3 guys fight off the Mousers that are returning home, and also try to cave themselves in, so they don't get eaten by the Mousers. But, things are not going well because these Mousers can chew through rocks and dirt like it's nothing. When Donatello and April fail to create a program and don't have days to write a computer virus, they decide to shut down all the power in the building, which would stop the radio transmitter from broadcasting the main computer's orders to the Mousers. All right, so, the end of this issue is very tense. And, it really has a great build, because even after they shut off the power, the radio transmitter is one of the last devices to fully turn off. So the guys here, barely make it out alive, because the Mousers are coming, and they're coming quick, I really think that this is a great issue, and I like it a lot, And, of course, it ends on a somewhat happy note here. And that takes us to issue 3. And, there's not much to really cover in issue 3, just a few little things here. All right, and check out that cover. There is the Turtle Van, or, what inspired the Ninja Turtle van in the Fred Wolf series. And, of course, we're going to talk about the cheaper version. That is a given. I got this comic book at Ides Entertainment. Or, no, I'm sorry. not Ides. I got it in Bill and Walt's hobby shop next to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, whenever it used to be like right downtown Pittsburgh, for like $2 or something like that, because it was all the comic books in Bill and Walt's hobby shop were like 50% off or something crazy. It was great. Bought so many Ninja Turtle comic books back then. So the only important things to really cover here is the Ninja Turtles return to their home in the sewers, and they find a bunch of broken Mousers because the Mousers have attacked Master Splinter. Not good, right? So the guys are freaking out, and I think this is sort of like, they find smashed Mousers and blood. So that's even worse, because obviously Master Splinter is hurt. Obviously they took some inspiration from this during the 1990 movie, whenever, the foot soldiers came in and attacked Master Splinter while the guys were hanging out at April's apartment. So what happened here? Well, in the back of issue 3, you have the epilogue here, and you have Master Splinter, and he looks like he's dying in, the sewers, which is no es bueno. And here he, remembers what had happened. He was sitting at home, and then all of a sudden he heard the sound of digging, and the Mousers broke through the walls and attacked him. And in issue 2, like, Splinter's watching TV, and he, he's really paying attention to these Mousers, because he's probably thinking, like, oh, geez, if these things are going to be going around the city and eating little rats, eventually they're going to find me, because he's a giant mutant rat. So they're fighting him. He's fighting them. He's trying to survive. He suffers many scrapes and bruises. And, just as things look like they're about to get even worse, he's getting tired. They're about ready to eat him. They start to walk away from him, obviously being called by Baxter's self-destruct program. So, Baxter here, Splinter is dying in the sewers when he's found by these guys from TCRI, right? And, if you don't know, but I know, these guys from TCRI take Splinter back to their building, where they try to help him out here. But Splinter doesn't know at first that they're actually good guys. And he discovers that they are really Utroms. Whenever NECA puts out their Mirage Utrom action figure, I will go over lots of stuff about the Utroms. Now let's talk about the Fred Wolf episode, A Thing About Rats. This was the 3rd episode of Season 1. At this point in the show, all the main characters have been introduced except for Irma. On the bad guy side, Krang was introduced in the last episode, but his origin and motives are still a mystery. He hasn't even encountered the turtles yet. Now, this episode introduces the Mousers and Baxter Stockman as a human. The Mousers never show up again, but Baxter returns in Season 2 and almost becomes a supporting cast member for most of that season until he gets transformed into a fly. After he becomes a fly, he only shows up 6 or 7 times throughout the rest of the show. It's a little bit of a bummer because his fly appearances are some of my absolute favorite episodes of the Fred Wolf series. As the episode begins, the Technodrome drives over some underground buildings. Was this some ancient civilization living a mile under the surface? Who knows? Soon afterwards, the Technodrome sends a giant drill elevator to the surface. This thing really goes up high. The Technodrome has to be multiple miles underground, and this tube just keeps on coming and coming. How much of the Technodrome is being used to store this massive amount of metal tubing? I don't know. It's it's one of those things where it's a cool idea, and I do like it. I especially loved when it showed up in the arcade game. But, obviously the transport module is a way better idea. Especially when you're thinking about, what Playmates could have made into a toy. I just don't think they could, get away with selling a 6-foot-tall plastic tube that you could attach to your Technodrome. Nah. Just take off the top, slap on some wheels, add a few rocket boosters, just like the Batmobile, because kids love rocket boosters and they love Batman, and it'll sell millions. It also made for better animated scenes. There was that cool episode where the guys were chasing a transport module while riding cheapskates. So Shredder drills his way into an abandoned building where he sets up shop and he releases these little dudes. What are these things? These little guys are known by a few different names. The Turtle Wiki calls them Shredder drones. NECA called them Shredder's spybots. The old Konami manuals called them tubular transport. Like, that's a stupid name. But the Foosh referred to them as spy flies, and in my opinion, that's the best. That's actually what I've been calling them for a long time, even before I read that article by the Foosh. It's cool to see that someone else came up with that name too. Shredder sends them to search the city for a new source of technical equipment. You mean he just came from a giant underground Death Star filled with Dimension X weapons and robots? But he needs more. So these dudes scour the city until they find Baxter Stockman giving a demonstration of his new Mouser robot. You see, he's trying to get funding from the owner of Ajax Pest Control so he can build more Mousers. He releases a rat in a maze and then sends his bloodthirsty rat-eating robot after it. The Mouser gets tired of searching for the rat the hard way, so it chomps through the walls. And when it finds that rat, man, he takes care of him in a pretty gruesome display, if I must say so myself. I mean, it's pretty violent for a Saturday morning cartoon back in the 80s. So here's a time where I should make some points, all right? Just like the Mirage Comics, Baxter releases a rat in a maze to show what his Mouser can do, In the comic, Baxter succeeds with his Mousers, but here, Baxter fails, and the Ajax owner, throws him out. He says the Mousers will put him out of business if they eat all the rats in the city. Hey, bud, just charge a premium and become filthy rich. Once they eat all the rats in the city, then, send them out to other cities. You become like a king. So anyways, the Shredder sees all this with his spy flies, and he decides to go get Baxter Stockman to work for him. He thinks the Mousers will be able to help him with his giant mutant rat problems. Shredder brings Baxter back to his dilapidated hideout, and he orders him to build a Mouser master control. Baxter is a little reluctant, but Shredder says that, he'll need a massive amount of computer power to control the hundreds of Mousers he plans on building. Take a look at all those chips or whatever that Rocksteady and Bebop bring him. I love when Rocksteady says, "So get to work." He sounds like different than he usually sounds, and it just sounds cool. So now the Shredder heads to the Technodrome to begin mass producing the Mousers. But wait, he left the Mouser with Baxter. They messed up. When we do get to the Technodrome, Shredder has his machines analyze the original Mouser, and then Bebop and Rocksteady start to replicate it. After producing 12 of them, the Shredder, can't help himself, so he sends them all after Hamato Yoshi. How are the Mousers able to track Splinter down like that? And, if the Shredder can program them to find him with ease, why wouldn't he just go to the turtle lair himself and kill Splinter? And shouldn't Shredder know where Splinter is anyways, because he put the mutagen down in the sewer to turn them into mutants? There's too many questions, all right? This children's show has so many potholes. At least in the Mirage Comics, the Mousers found Splinter in the sewers just by chance, They just randomly came across him. So, just like the Mirage Comics, the Mousers break into the turtle lair, and they attack Splinter while the turtles are out hunting for the Technodrome. Obviously the Technodrome isn't in the Mirage Comics, but they're not home when Splinter gets attacked. Fortunately for Fred Wolf Splinter, the guys show up at the last minute and save him from the Mousers. This scene here has a lot of really cool shots of the Mousers just getting decimated by the Ninja Turtles. I love how Raph stabs the hell out of these things and smashes them together. After all the mechanical carnage, the guys discover the Mousers are stamped with Baxter's trademark, so they decide to hunt him down. Donatello asks, what kind of idiot puts his name on a death machine? But to be fair to Baxter, it was the Shredder who foolishly left it on there. At this point in time, Baxter isn't even doing this for evil. He just thinks that Shredder is funding him or something like that. Back at the Technodrome, the Shredder learns that all 12 Mousers were destroyed. Pff, bummer. So he begins to produce 1,200 more. The guys go to April's apartment, hoping she can help them hunt down Baxter. She acts like having a name isn't enough to hunt him down. Like that's all you got? A name? Like, yeah, April, we were just hoping we could use your phone book, because we can look up Baxter Stockman's name and find his address and phone number in there. Baxter Stockman isn't exactly like Tom Smith or anything like that, so I'm sure, he's pretty easy to find. I guess April doesn't have a Yellow Pages, so, she looks up Baxter on her computer while the guys destroy her apartment. And, I gotta say, I've always loved this scene. I think it's hilarious. The guys are like kids in a toy store, just picking at everything and bothering things, just, messing everything up. I really don't know how April keeps her trim figure eating nothing but pizza, but, that's cartoon for you, right? Back at Shredder's base, Baxter finishes building the Mouser Master Control, and he asks to go home because he's tired. The Shredder agrees, but he sends some foot soldiers to kill him, since he knows too much. I gotta mention the vehicle here that the foot soldiers drive. Now, I want NECA to make that toy. That's a very cool looking vehicle, and it's called the Turtle Seeking Cycle. It showed up here and in, I think it was either the Big Break-In, one of those big episodes from the end of Season 3. And I best remember it from Fall of the Foot Clan. That's where I remember seeing it a lot as a kid playing that game. Now I'm going to pick a little bit more at this cartoon. And, this is, obviously I'm not, super 100% serious. I'm not just trying to rip into things. I just think that these are funny things to talk about. So, I think this is a little goofy here, where the foot soldiers have to ride down to the Technodrome. They would have to get into the drill elevator and take it all the way down to the Technodrome garage, which, is on the bottom floor, to get to this turtle seeking cycle, and then, drive it off the platform and all that kind of stuff. It would take forever for them to drive all the way up to the top there, to come out of this grate right here. They would have to have, the perfect slopes to get up there. What exactly happened here? If anything, it would have made more sense for them to maybe, have that cycle on the actual drill elevator, or maybe if it was just, sitting outside the building, all right? They should have just had it outside the building, because otherwise this is just a little much. Not only that, but why let Baxter leave? Why let him go home and then kill him as he's trying to get into his apartment? Just have the foot soldiers break his neck here, inside the house. Right here, And then just take his corpse down to the Technodrome and throw it in the big, tunnel or whatever the Technodrome is sitting in. Nobody's going to dig down there and hunt for his body, You're not going to smell it. They have the perfect hiding place for a dead body. So as Baxter leaves, the Shredder commands his massive Mouser army to go hunt down the Turtles, Splinter, and April. And then when Baxter reaches home, the foot soldiers attack him and try to kill him. But the Ninja Turtles show up and easily save him. Now, you'd think that Baxter would be grateful, but no. He refuses to tell the Turtles where the Shredder's hideout is. The Shredder just tried to kill him, but he won't snitch. That is until Raph threatens to get sarcastic. It's, that to me is one of my favorite Raphael lines. One that I always remember all the time that Raph said, just because it's funny and it's perfect Fred Wolf Raphael. So Baxter spills the beans, he gives them the Shredder's whereabouts, and he also tells him that he has a giant Mouser Master Control, which, Donatello figures he can use that to stop the Mousers, whatever. And, in a show of appreciation, for the information they just received, the guys decide to straight up steal Baxter's van. Seriously, they tie him to a pole, they go into his van, Donatello's like, wow, look at all this cool equipment. And Mikey's like, we can use all of this junk. And they just drive it away. No wonder Baxter Stockman wants to kill them in future episodes. He probably had that van since high school. Always hoping that maybe someday he'd get his best girl, take her to the movies. But he never did because he's a loser and he doesn't have a girl. And now that dream is completely dead and buried because the turtles stole his van. Back in April's apartment, the Mousers attack. April and Splinter do what they can to fight them off, but, the turtles have to save them because, come on. A pan and a stick is not going to stop this giant, massive army of Mousers. All right, so the Mousers caused structural damage to April's apartment building, which causes the whole thing to collapse. Now, if you remember back in the Mirage comic books, Baxter was threatening to use his Mousers to demolish buildings, so maybe that is a connection there. After this, all 6 heroes head to Shredder's base, and Donatello says that he could use the equipment in the van to power up Baxter's Mouser remote control. That way he can control all the Mousers, but he needs someone to go in the abandoned building to shut off the master control. And that's when Michelangelo accidentally agrees to do it. Mikey goes inside, and immediately he's caught, tipping off the Shredder that the turtles are, outside, so that, of course, he can program all of his Mousers to go outside and attack them. Now, just like the Mirage Comics, here you have an army of Mousers moving in for the kill while Donatello is trying to turn them off. Here's where Michelangelo encounters Krang for the first time. Does Krang help Shredder torture Michelangelo? Does he come up with some scheme to help the Mousers chomp the good guys? Nah, he frees Michelangelo and tells him where the master control is, so he can help his friends. What? You see, Krang's a jerk, and he was sabotaging the Shredder's plan in hopes that, constant failure will finally motivate the Shredder to build Krang his new android body, Pretty jerky. Krang is like chaotic evil or something like that. So Mikey enters the master control room, tricks the Shredder into shooting the master control, and Donatello is able to then send the Mousers back into the abandoned building where they, eat the structure and cause it to fall in upon itself. What a great episode. Even though I didn't have this on tape, I probably had I don't know, was there a coloring book of this? I can't remember exactly what it was, but I don't know. I just always remember this episode. I liked it a lot as a kid. It was one that really stuck out on my brain, and I never forgot it, The thing that always popped up in my head was the scene with Krang and Michelangelo. It always really intrigued me as a kid. I didn't understand why Krang would help Michelangelo. And Krang just seemed so mysterious at that time. If you had watched the cartoon from episodes 1 to 5, and you never saw anything before that, Krang just seemed so mysterious and cool. And every time I watch this episode, it still kind of hits me the same exact way. When you compare this episode to Mirage Comics number 2 and 3, you can clearly see how those issues inspired this episode. So now, let's take a look at the 3 opening episodes of the 2003 show. That's right, 3. The Mousers have a little arc, beginning in episode 1, Things Change. Now, I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible because, man, I've been going on forever. So, as this episode begins, Splinter is teaching the Turtles a lesson in ninjutsu when all of a sudden, the Mousers munch their way into their lair. Just randomly, these robots found their lair and, an all-out battle takes place. And one thing I have to say about the 2003 show is the animation is fantastic. It is awesome. The characters stay very consistent and everything is just very fluid. I love the style of it. I don't know if it's maybe they're trying to be a little anime or something like that. I'm not the hugest anime fan. I'm more of a fan of American cartoons. And so I feel like it's a nice mix of it. They don't really, I don't know, they don't have the appearance of anime characters, but you could definitely see some influence, especially during the fight scenes. There are certain things that, look like they could have been taken from Dragon Ball Z or something like that, but I like it. So the guys smash the crap out of all these things, but there's just too many. They start munching at the walls and they cause a cave-in. Now the Turtles and Splinter are separated. Splinter's on one side of this wall and the Turtles are on the other. And they talked with each other on their little turtle communicators. Even they were already starting that in episode 1. It was like Peter Laird was like, we have to. This can't be just like the Fred Wolf series, but we got to keep enough stuff in here that we can make toys of that is sort of like the Fred Wolf series. So Splinter tells them, to meet him at the old drainage junction in South Point. The Turtles try to go there, but, nothing is ever easy. They can't reach it because Mousers caused more, damage in the sewers, and there's like more cave-ins and walls and stuff like that shouldn't be there. So the guys have to travel up on the surface. I think this episode is great because it's such a simple idea, The Turtles have to get from point A to point B, but of course they go on this tangent, this little extra adventure. And cool stuff takes place, The Ninja Turtles run into some red dragons, they fight them, they have their first encounter with the Foot Clan and fight them, and again, awesome animation, awesome battles. Even back in 2003, I remember watching the show and just being like in awe of the animation of the battles. Like, so much stuff happens in this episode. Raphael gets stuck on a vehicle with some stolen money. Splinter reaches the junction first, and he fights some more Mousers. But of course they cause a cave-in, and he falls pretty far. But, don't worry. When he reached the bottom of his descent, he finds the new Turtles lair for this show. The Shredder is mysterious, and he doesn't even meet the Ninja Turtles yet. He's just in the background. He kills a subordinate that, failed to do what he was supposed to do, which is, they were already the show was becoming more serious than the Fred Wolf series. You could definitely see that there was a line drawn that they didn't want to repeat what they had done in the 80s. And one of the best things in the episode, in my opinion, is Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird cops. That's great. And, this is a great opening episode for the series. But there is no real inspiration from issues 2 and 3, so we gotta move on. All right, episode 2, A Better Mousetrap. Now, this is the first episode I saw when this show aired, and I videotaped it on like a VHS tape. While Leonardo and Raphael bring their belongings from their old lair to their new lair, Mikey hooks up their new TV setup, and Donatello studies one of the broken Mousers. That's a little similar to issue 2, because in issue 2 of Mirage Comics, Donnie was messing around with some computer stuff, and the Turtles were watching the TV, and what were they watching on the TV? They were watching the news. And speaking of the news, in this episode, Mikey puts the TV on, and bam, there you go. A news report about Baxter Stockman's new invention. And what could it be? Oh yeah, you guessed it. Mousers. Just like the original issue of Mirage comic books, Baxter is showcasing what his Mousers can do, by releasing rats in a maze and letting his Mouser hunt them down. Now, you never actually see the Mouser eat any of the rats, right? He gets right next to him, and then you hear some horrifying sounds, but you never actually see him put one in his mouth, unlike the Fred Wolf series. Maybe because the inside of this Mouser's mouth is like even more gruesome than the original one. Like, look at that, like the sharp stuff all over the place. In this episode, April is back to being Baxter's lab assistant, and Baxter is black, just like the original Mirage comic books. So, they're matching the original source material. Although he doesn't have that cool mustache. If you watch the rest of this series, much like the original Baxter in the comic books, this dude is like an evil bastard. There is no goofiness about him at all. He is very egomaniacal, and the only thing that I don't like about Baxter as much in this 2003 cartoon is that he's the pawn of the Shredder, he kind of checks him. He kind of is very cocky and talks back to the Shredder and stuff like that. But still, he is sort of controlled by the Shredder. And I just kind of feel like, Baxter should be his own, he should be his own man, just like how he is in the IDW comic books. Like Baxter in IDW, he's like the mayor and stuff like now. He is his own person. He's doing all these cool things without the influence of other people. Although, I will say that it does get interesting in this cartoon that, like, every time he fails, the Shredder, like, removes a part of his body. Like, it's pretty violent if you think about it for a kid's show. But, yeah, just like the idea. Like, Baxter fails in the end of episode 3, and, like, Shredder cuts out his eyeball. Obviously, they don't show it, but the next time you see Baxter Stockman, he's got, like, claw marks on his face and an eye patch. So just like the original comic book, and also in the Fred Wolf episode, Baxter says here that there is a master control for all the Mousers. And, April is, like, actually excited to be working with him because Baxter is, like, this famous scientist. It seems like the two of them are on good terms. And then, of course, she's got to go digging around. She runs a diagnostic on the Mousers, but the system shows that some of the Mousers aren't transmitting properly. It's like they're missing or something like that. And Baxter tells her, like, don't sweat it, lady. But, like, in a very sinister tone. Yeah. Now, here's where he, like, leaves to go talk to the Shredder on the phone. And, of course, April listens in because, April is just always so nosy. Back at the Turtles, Donatello fixes one of the Mousers up, and the guys start trying to follow it. It doesn't attack them because, it's not programmed to. I guess maybe it's programmed to return home or something like that because they just start chasing after it. And, here's where you see, like, a lot of cool scenes in the sewers. And here's where you can also see that the Mouser can climb up a wall. Back at Stocktronics, April snoops around, of course. She's looking through Baxter's lab, and she finds a secret elevator that leads her to Stockman's secret production factory. She trips an alarm, typical April, and Baxter comes to get her, So here, like, when you listen to this episode, it doesn't sound here that April helped program these Mousers at all, all right? It just sounds like Baxter did everything, and April is just his lowly assistant. He doesn't even respect her enough to ask her to, like, join him or anything like that. He just tries to kill her right away, Maybe he's just mad because he, like, probably told her to dress professional at work, and instead she dressed like she was going to work at Gadzooks. Like, are those Jankos and a belly shirt again? Like, I can see your butt crack when you lean over. Stocktronics is a family environment. So April fights off the Mousers, and, all of this is great. This is a cool scene. And just like Mirage Comics, she ends up in the sewers. The Mousers move in for the kill. And just when you think it's over, the guys show up to save her. I like this episode a lot, too. I like the chemistry between all the turtles. I think all that is great. I love them, like, following the Mouser in the sewer. In this episode, the Mousers are stronger. They kind of mention that than they were in their first encounter. I love when one of the guys throws a ninja star at the Mouser, and it doesn't kill it. It just looks spooky and super mad. Again, the Mouser battle scenes are fantastic. And, oh yeah, April passes out in the end, just like in the comic books. Mikey even says, "Can I keep her?" Which is, a nice nod to Turtles 1990. One final episode. Episode 3, Attack of the Mousers. April awakes in the sewer lair where the guys introduce themselves, and Splinter tells her the Turtles' origin, just like he did in Mirage comic books. Meanwhile, the Mousers begin robbing banks, and they do it during the day when people are there. Like, they even get videotaped. Like, that seems pretty stupid for Baxter Stockman to do that. The whole thing is that he's building these Mousers. He says he's making them for rats control or something like that, but really he's making them so that the Shredder can use them to rob banks, I guess. That's the whole thing. But you do it at nighttime. Like, the guys see footage of this on their TV, and they know right away that the Mousers were the ones who were doing this because they can see their footprints everywhere. People in the city saw him show this thing on TV, and now they have videotape of them, robbing this bank. Obviously, they're going to know that it was him who did this. One of the things they obviously left out of this episode was him terrorizing the city by threatening to collapse buildings. Obviously, this was in 2003. they weren't going to do this 2 years after 2001. But it just kind of seems like something's missing in this episode, something story-wise. It's just kind of not there that should be there. Like, maybe they should have taken a little bit of time, just like the Mirage Comic Books does. Like, he shows it on TV, and then a couple weeks later is when April finds out that he's doing all these, terrible things. So if you asked me, in the original Mirage Comics, the Mousers were a success for Baxter, they were making him money. He just wanted more. He wanted more money and to cause terror and stuff like that. In the Fred Wolf series, he was a failure, and Ajax Pest Control, kicked him out of the building. Here I'd say the Mousers were sort of failed publicly because, they were never used to go hunt rodents. They're destroyed before they actually did anything that they were supposed to be doing for him to be a success for people. You didn't even need the scene with him showing what the Mousers could do on TV. He could have just been building these things in secret with the sole purpose of robbing banks. He never had to bring them up to anybody, especially when they were going to get caught on TV during the day. Pretty much the whole scene with him showing them on TV was just so that the Turtles could see them on TV and know that, those were the robots that wrecked their home and Stockman was behind it. So the Turtles go with April to find Stockman, and here it's fleshed out more than it is in Mirage Comic Books. There's guards, but they don't fight the guards. April has to go use a computer to turn off some security so the guys can slip in undetected. But when the guys reach the main corridor where Baxter Stockman is, controlling his Mousers, he sends some mechanical arms to try to fight them. This is a cool scene. I like this. I like this mechanical arm battle. Eventually they reach Baxter. Raph roughs him up a little bit, but he doesn't knock him out. And of course, Baxter calls all the Mousers back to the building, just like Mirage. Stockman does escape eventually, but as he's trying to leave the building, he gets caught by Hun. And unfortunately, Hun takes Baxter back to the Shredder's hideout where, Shredder can punish him by cutting out his eyeball. April and Don try to turn off the Mousers, and it looks like the other guys are going to have to fight, this really epic battle of the Mousers while they try to do it. But very abruptly, April turns them off, It's a little bit anticlimactic, It's nowhere near as tense as issue 2 of Mirage. They do self-destruct, but, the guys escape. It's not very worrisome or anything. So at the end of the episode, April decides to team up with the guys for future adventures. And, that's about it, They probably could have cut out the mechanical arm scene, or maybe just trim that down a little bit, just to add more of an epic Mouser battle at the end. But, what can you do? It ends with the Shredder using a Mouser head to learn about the Ninja Turtles. And to be honest with you, as I was watching these 2003 episodes, I was getting into it. I was like, man, I should finish this. I should continue to watch some more of these cartoons. These are good. So, I sure talked a lot about the Mousers in 3 different continuities. Probably way too long. I would be surprised if anybody is actually still here. Isn't this a toy review? Yeah, I should probably talk about the toys now, 20 hours later. Man, check out all the awesome stuff that was included in this box set. I'm a little sad to say that these guys have been sitting in a bag inside of a box for the past month or so while I've been writing, recording, and editing my cartoon review, not to mention just, regular work. And, I really forgot how impressed I was when I first opened these guys up. But now that I'm looking at them all again, their awesomeness is just slapping me right in the face. As I said earlier, whenever I think of the Ninja Turtle toys, cartoons, video games, whatever, it doesn't take long for, these Mousers to pop up in my head. They're a classic Ninja Turtle design, and in my opinion, these brand new NECA Fred Wolf Mousers may be the best Mousers ever made. And, I could see them working with nearly any Ninja Turtle toy line. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit, but first, we just need to quickly compare these guys to their on-screen counterparts. Like most characters in the show, the proportions of these guys can vary from shot to shot. Sometimes their heads are like circles. I mean, that's way off. But, they're still like, slightly consistent. All the animators had to do was keep the general details close enough, and your mind just kind of thinks they all look the same, right? When it comes to the toys, I'd say, they're very close, The basic details are all here, but a couple of things are different. I think the head's maybe a little smaller when compared to the body. Especially like this red light on top of the head, that seems to be a little smaller on this action figure than it appears in the cartoon. Another thing is, if you look at the heads, they're pretty much shaped like smooth beans. They've got a smooth bean shape, which is very similar to how they appeared in the Mirage comic books. If you look at this action figure, I would not say that they necessarily have that smooth, rounded bean shape, because the mouth sort of juts outward. It's not just like like a sausage link or something like that. It actually moves outward, and I don't know. Because of that, sometimes you look at his frowny face, and he just looks like a major snot. Like he's got such bad attitude. Here's a pretty nice profile shot of this guy in the cartoon. I think that looks very similar to this toy. But like I said, there's just little adjustments, It's no biggie. I thought maybe some of these adjustments, like the mouth especially, could have been because maybe NECA had made these, originally to be based off of the arcade look. But, I don't think that that's the case. Now, the biggest missing piece on these Mousers is right down here on the bottom. They're supposed to have circles on their butts, I guess that's where they remove the rat guts after they've been turned into a rat smoothie. And then finally, the only other missing piece is on the bottom of the feet here. They do not have the Baxter stamp, and of course they don't have that because it would have been tiny, so small. If you look inside of their mouths, you can see they've got this very nice X shape, this hole here where the rats would enter their cold, sterile, robotic stomach. There are some indent lines on the roof of the mouth. You can see that there. And, in this shot here, you can see the top of that shape, but you can't see the bottom. I couldn't find a screenshot, well, at least in my collection, of like the full opening in the Mouser's mouth. So NECA gave you 4 of these guys in perfect condition. And in my opinion, it's amazing to see how their like simple articulation allows them to get into such expressive poses. I just feel like you can really make it look like they appear like they're thinking, like, they're on the hunt, or they're just kind of standing there dormant, or, whatever else. Like, I feel like they have a lot of cool things that you can do with them. Usually, I'm a fan of these guys having their knees bent back like this. I think that looks cool. But I do appreciate that you have the option. You can make it look like they have them bent forward like this, and it'll still work well if he's like attacking somebody or whatever. And sometimes you might have to use a front bend and a back bend to get them into certain poses, which, can also look fine, in my opinion, a lot of Mousers feel very limited. In fact, most of the Mousers I have don't even have knee articulation. So it's very cool that, these guys are able to move so well. It kind of seems like you could have 50 of these guys on your shelf, and each one of them could be posed differently or give off a different vibe. To me, that is impressive. Not only that they're so expressive, but that they're expressive despite not having a face or arms, That's cool. It's cool that you're able to do so much with these guys. And, I really like, bending their knees forward like this and kind of hunching them down like they look like a T-Rex on the prowl. You can have them standing upright, like they're awaiting a command, or maybe they're like surveying an area. You could have them like attacking upward, in case somebody's up on a ladder or somebody's up on a platform above them. I mean, you can stretch them out as like high as you can. And I don't know, it just all looks nice. I mean, you could do even subtle things like having them peek around a corner, getting ready to nibble on an unexpecting passerby. There's a lot of great things you can do, but they do have a few small problems, and I'll point them out as I go over their articulation, all right? So first of all, their mouths can open very big, and I have a hard time getting their mouths open because I don't have very long fingernails, but you can open them up very wide, and they just look so menacing and so threatening. Very cool. There's a hinge at the back of the head here, and you can kind of tilt the head upwards and everything, and the higher you tilt it, the more you can open up the mouth. If you put it down here, you won't be able to open up the mouth as big. Or maybe you can. There, to about there you can. There is a ball joint here in the neck, so you can move the head around, which is great. To me, that is what really helps with all the expressions and the moods and everything you want to do with this guy. It's that ball, you can have him look up, you can look down, you could rotate it all the way around, All of that is great. The next movement is the hips. These are just, circles, they just rotate around. That works well. Unfortunately, some of these can get a little loose. And then, you might have a little bit of a hard time getting him to stay in the stance you want. But if they're not too loose, it works out just fine. Now, the knees work really well, but they, they're a little limited because, you can only, this hinge can only go back this far, and it can go forward that far, which is, that's fine. You don't really need much more than that. One of the biggest problems, though, is all of my knee hinges have little tiny cracks. There, you see that? You see how they all have these cracks? That can't be good in the long run. So you got to be very careful when you're moving this knee joint around. The knee joints can also get a little loose, which can be a little tricky when you're trying to get them to stay in the way you want them to stay. And then the final thing is just the ankle joint. That rotates back that far, rotates forward that far. All in all, you should be able to get this guy into whatever pose you want him to be in. Now let's take a look at all the battle damage Mouser parts that NECA provided in this very cool set. First, you have this battle damaged Mouser. And, he works just as well as a regular Mouser. The only difference is he's got a damaged face. And, I do have to give NECA credit here, because I think they did a really good job making his face look like hammered metal. It looks like this is a piece of metal that has been hammered by a nunchuck or a bow or something like that, It's, I don't know, it's very cool looking. You could still have him trying to attack the turtles. He's just, beaten up. Next up is the dead on the ground Mouser. And I mean, what else are you going to call this guy? That's what you're going to call him. First of all, the crushed metal, again, looks awesome. And I do appreciate that the head is a different head than the last head I showed. He has different parts that are crushed. I love how that is just, just a huge chunk of that. It's just, knocked in. It's a very nice looking battle damaged face. And my goodness gracious, I cannot get the mouse open. All right. So you got no damage inside, but like I said, the outside looks good. He has this elongated neck that makes it appear as though the Ninja Turtles have almost ripped his head off completely. I don't know, it's cool. He still has the same ball jointed neck, and you still have the hinged head. It's just got this huge long neck that is just kind of funny to me. Now, what's interesting about this battle damaged Mouser is he actually has the circle down on the bottom. So That's cool. Like, why do you think that this Mouser had that, but the other Mousers did not? I don't know. One of his legs is perfectly fine. You know, it's normal. It articulates the same exact way as all the other ones. And then the other leg, is missing a foot and also does not articulate at the knee. On his back here, you can see there is a wire sticking out. And then you also have this large gaping hole. Now, this hole can be used for two different things. You know, first you can like stick the bow on there. Pretend that Donnie is just like carrying him around like that or whatever. Or maybe Donatello is smashing him into the ground like so. You know, that would all be cool. And also this hole can be used for quite possibly one of my favorite gimmicks in this whole toy line, alright? You can stick this little tiny mouse head in there to make it look as though, the Ninja Turtles had stabbed this guy and this rat is trying to, get out. Like, thank you, Turtles. Thank you for saving me. Next up, we have 3 different body parts. 3 different chunks, if you will. And first up, you have the severed head. And this head is the exact same head that came on the, still mostly working Mouser. Funny thing here is if you look at the lights on top of their heads, they are gray, as though they are dead, I guess, where the regular Mousers have the red lines on top. The crushed Mouser also had a gray line. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about these heads is, there's a hole on top of the head. And, that is so that you can have Raphael stab him. Like so, that's cool. That's a nice little trophy that Raphael can walk around like, look at this. That can be you. Oh, no. Or if you really want to, what I think looks really cool is, in the middle of battle, like if a Mouser was trying to bite Raph. Oh my gosh, he dropped the sigh. That's not good. The Mouser's trying to bite Raph, and then Raph could like kind of stick it right through his mouth like that and stop him from chomping on his hand. Raph just has like the coolest action attack features. He could stab Roadkill Rodney in the head. He could stab these Mousers in the head. That's just cool. I do gotta mention the Mouser's neck here, right? It looks cool. It looks like there's like insulation or something like that that's around these wires that are going down to the body. But how does that make any sense? Like, how does the rat fit down these very thin wires? Like, is it like the 2003 Mousers? Does this Mouser like puree the rat and liquefy him before it travels down these tubes into his belly? Next up, you have like this neck piece. And this looks cool. I do like how they look. Like, I like the build of the actual Mousers, how you can kind of, figure out in your head how these bits and pieces connect to each other. Even down here, underneath, that all looks very neat, too. I kind of wish that you could have possibly, like, rebuilt a Mouser and, pull it apart into these pieces. None of these pieces connect at all. So, that might be a little unfortunate for you. And finally, you have the bottom half of a Mouser. And this is very cool, too. It looks like Leo sliced this guy right in half. And here you can see, like, there's wires or springs in there. There's just some nice little black, unknown details that just look cool, You don't need to know what this stuff does. It just looks neat. And, like, the crushed metal on the front looks really nice. This poor guy's all banged up. The knee joints work, the hip joints and the ankles all work. He's just, he's half the man he used to be. All right, so do any of these parts come from the show? Well, I guess. In this shot right here, you can see it looks like these pieces are here. Not, exactly, but, definitely those bits and pieces match some of these pieces here. There's a lot of Mouser destruction in this episode. Leo slices one in half. This one is like completely decimated. Man, there's like so much destruction. This one right here, has those springs coming out of the body. Alright, so next up is rats. And all these rats look cool, but some of them have been released in the past. Three of them are like a light bluish gray. Two of them are more just plain old light gray. And then I think this dude right here is a little bit of a light brown color. You know, some of these guys, you cannot make them stand up because the way that they are sculpted, their tails kind of hook around. That way you can kind of stick them onto the Rat King. Alright, so this rat right here, he was released before with the Rat King, only in this dark gray color. And then you also have this rat. And then you have this rat right here. Pretty much all the ones with the hook tails came with the Rat King. That way you can hook them onto the Rat King himself. And then you have this rat. This looks like a brand new sculpt. Just like this sitting rat. And then you also have this standing up rat. Now this rat right here kind of reminds me of this rat from the cartoon. I don't know. There's just something about the way he's standing. To me, it looks very similar. And this rat is from the episode The Were-Rats from Channel 6. Finally, you have this rat right here standing up. And, you know, this rat was also released before. He looked like this originally, and he came with the rat... I'm sorry, he came with Splinter and Baxter Stockman. Originally, he was included in that set because he was the pet of Hamato Yoshi. But in my opinion, this brand new rat right here, well, I guess the way they colored him is brand new. This rat is probably supposed to be the rat that appears in, you know, A Thing About Rats. He's the one that gets eaten by the Mouser. They even included a block of cheese here for this guy to chomp on. So that's nice. Now, if you want to actually make the Mousers appear as though they are eating these rats, you can do it. But the rats are still like a little too big. Like, you can't fit the whole body in the mouth. Even the one that is like sitting down, who looks like he would be perfect to fit in the Mouser's mouth, he only goes in, you know, that far. So unfortunately, you cannot just fit a whole mouse in his mouth. Yeah, even the standing one, I thought maybe he was a little more crunched up, but, you know, he does not fit in there. It's pretty easy to get the rats with, like, the hook tails wrapped around the Rat King's arms. But, you know, some of the other ones where they're kind of just, like, stretched out and they don't really have anything to, I don't know, hook them on him. Like, they don't really work as well. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet, what you can do here. But, you know, maybe if you get enough hooktail rats, maybe you can finally do this. Or maybe you need to get, like, little tiny clear rubber bands and wrap them around him. Maybe that would work. Next up, the Mousers came with a VHS tape. It's got some nice details on it. Now, this was released before with Ace Duck. Only it had the tape there, the reels are gray. Now they are like a light baby blue. You know, basically, you just want to get a bunch of these things so you can have like a nice stack of VHS tapes in your Ninja Turtle lair whenever NECA finally releases that. You know, as I mentioned in my Ace Duck review, the guys watch a lot of videotapes on their television, so you will also need to get a VCR with that Ninja Turtle lair. Next up, the Mousers come with a piece of pizza, and it's different than, I don't think we've had a piece of pizza like this before. I'd have to go back and check. But, you know, I mean, it looks cool. I just don't understand why NECA keeps on giving us pieces of pizza. Like, did the Ninja Turtles ever eat pizza in the cartoon? I always kind of thought they were, like, burgers and fries kind of guys. And finally, you have the Shredder Spybot. Or, as I said before, the Shredder Spyfly. Or the Shredder Drone. Or the Tubular Transport. But let's face it, nobody's going to call it that. You know, I like this little dude a lot. This was one of the things I was really excited about getting when I saw this box set. I think this looks pretty cool, But I do have some mixed feelings about it, you know. Size-wise, it's probably spot on and perfect with the show, you know. It is probably the correct scale. And the thing about rats, you can see that the Shredder releases a bunch of these from that, I don't know, briefcase sort of looking thing. So they should be small so that they, you know, they can go out, hide, and spy on things. But, you know, because I think of them so much from video games, I kind of think that they should be a little bigger. I don't know, just because I think they'd look cooler, you know? And maybe you could put, like, some kind of stand on them to try to make it appear as though they are kind of floating in the air. Because right now, I mean, you're just, like, what are you going to do with these things? You're going to have to, like, stand them up somewhere or something. I think they did a good job of matching the details pretty good, but, you know, the paint apps right here on the eyes are very sloppy. I haven't opened up my second box of Mousers, so I don't know if that looks any better, but, you know, it is a little sloppy. And I just kind of think that maybe this, the blades here, they look a little goofy. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe if this was wider, it would look a lot better. You know, the actual fly itself was a little wider, and the blades were just kind of bigger, you know. I just kind of think that, you know, if you were going to have them this size, they should be thinner. But this, to be honest with you, this is probably as thin as they probably could get with this action figure without, you know, it like being like floppy looking or just being off. As I said, I think of them from the games, so I kind of feel like they should almost be like the size of a Ninja Turtle head or something like that. You know, especially when you look at it here, or like here. But, you know, I get it. You know, this is supposed to be cartoon accurate, so I just kind of have to sit down and take it. Now that I've talked about these guys in the cartoon, and I've gone over all their accessories in excessive detail, now I'm going to compare these Mousers to every other Mouser that have come before. Well, that I own at least. And I'm also going to show these Mousers next to a Ninja Turtle from every Ninja Turtle toy line that I have. That way you can see, you know, if these guys are a good fit for any other, you know, Ninja Turtle toy line. Alright, so let's get this giant comparison going. And first up, we got to talk about the 1989 Mouser. Now, check that guy out. He was a part of the Wacky Action series. You know, he wasn't an actual regular basic Ninja Turtle action figure. In my opinion, when I was a kid, I always thought he, like, you know, just seemed way too big to be a Mouser. I never had a Mouser. He is supposed to have this action figure where he pushes back and he's supposed to walk, but mine does not work. All right? So he's kind of blue. He's got some, I don't know, some nice details on him. He comes with lots of stickers. All right, so, you know, he was okay for what he was. But I think that, you know, they could have done a better job with this Mouser. And I think if you look at this Mouser, you know, he looks pretty awesome. And in my opinion, he seems more in scale with the Ninja Turtles here. You know, he's a little bit like waist high, looks good next to Leonardo here. Like you could, bam, you know, kick him, cut him to pieces with his sword, all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, another Mouser's jumping at him. Oh my gosh. You know, as I've said earlier in this video, I think one of the best things about this new Mouser is the extra points of articulation, you know. You can get him into nice poses. This original Mouser, you cannot. You know, he is pretty much stuck in this stance. Now, his mouth can open up, and you kind of want to sometimes to get this in the, like, I don't know. Sometimes you'll be stuck with it down, and sometimes you'll be able to get the mouth stuck in an open position, which, you know, I prefer. Make it look like he's actually, like, attacking the Ninja Turtles and stuff. But yeah, very limited. Still a cool Mouser to begin with, but I think this one kind of beats it a little bit. You know, but that's just my opinion. Next up, you have the 2003 Mouser. Now, this guy's cool, but for some reason, he just reminds me of, like, a little, like, rooster or something like that. There's just something about him that reminds me of a chicken. But these guys are pretty cool, you know, a little more maniacal than the original Mousers, especially with those teeth that you can see in the cartoon. And, you know, I don't know if this actually appeared in the cartoon or not. I have never seen an episode with this. But there was a toy of a giant Mouser, all right? You got the two, you know, two of the hands are Mouser heads. This head up here does not look like a Mouser head at all. And the teeth are, like, soft. I don't know. He's supposed to also have, like, projectiles that shoot, but I do not have the missiles. All I have are the guns. So, all this is cool. And then you can see the Mouser, this brand new NECA Mouser, next to these guys. He's almost the exact same size as the 2003 Mouser. Obviously the 2003 show had its own style. So this kind of fits in with the 2003 Ninja Turtles. However, if you had some of these guys and you didn't have these, because I think if you want to try to get these on eBay, they're a little pricey. Two of them came with April, and I think sometimes people on eBay try to sell them by themselves just so people can army build with them. But like I said, they're getting a little pricey. So these Mousers would also fit in my opinion, fine with these Ninja Turtle toys. Obviously, he's got like a matte paint. He doesn't have... All these other guys are sort of like a shiny plastic, but he still looks cool next to them. I don't really see anything too jarring or weird, And this is kind of what I was talking about with Baxter Stockman in this show. Like, as I said, every time he fails the Shredder, like, does something to him. And by the end of the show, Baxter is just like a head. And I think even in the last... Was that like that one band episode? Isn't he just like a brain or something? I can't even remember. But, this poor guy takes a beating. But, I guess don't feel bad for him because he is pure evil. Oh. Now, just like the other Mouser, these guys are limited, although they are more articulated than the original 1989 Mouser. These guys, you can see the rows of sharp teeth inside the mouth there, just like in the cartoon. The legs are articulated here, so you can try to move them. But, you're not going to be able to get this guy in any kind of cool stances. Because he doesn't... It would be better if he had knee articulation. Then you'd be good to go. And then his mouth is also sort of like... spring-loaded. Like, you can kind of lock it into place like this. And then it chomps down. Both of these Mousers are pretty cool. But as I said before, this Mouser is fully articulated, and you'll be able to do more things and get him into more positions. This is like, because, the 2003 has its own style, this is not as comparable as the 1989. All right, moving on. All right, up next, we're going to take a look at the 2012 Mousers. I think the 2012 cartoon was a great cartoon, but I don't think that the toys were necessarily the greatest Ninja Turtle toys. I think they had a lot of problems, and a lot of them almost feel a little cheap, almost like, Burger King Happy Meal toys, right? These Mousers are cool. I like that they actually have, ones that come in black and ones that come in silver, but I don't know. They just seem kind of cheap. They're not the greatest thing in the world. I don't know. I feel like they're a little lackluster or something like that. And, of course, when you compare them to the, the NECA Mouser, the NECA ones here, they just look more powerful, I guess these would work fine with the 2012 show, but, I don't know. These ones fit in more because they're sort of that more simple design, I guess. Simple paint and all that kind of stuff. And yes, I know these guys are not from the 2012 cartoon, but I figured they're sort of the same toy line almost. They kind of cross over into each other, much like the original Ninja Turtles series and the movie star guys and stuff like that. So I might as well show how these guys look next to these Mousers too. So upon closer look, these guys are just way better. The articulation, you can get so many cool poses. You can make them look like they're actually walking and stuff like that. Like they're actually in the middle of action, where these guys are very frozen, almost lifeless or something. What I do like I said, I do like the black Mousers. I think that's just a cool variant for them. I think that's a cool color. I wouldn't mind seeing Mousers in multiple colors with the NECA ones. What I do think is cool is inside the mouth of the black Mouser, you see like these red lines. And that kind of, the silver one does not have that. But in the cartoon, if you look inside the Mouser's mouth, you can see like all those lit up, you can see all those lit up lights inside the mouth. Like the poor rat is going through like some kind of ecstasy trip before he dies. So these brand new Ninja Turtle classic action figures from Playmates, they do not have Mousers. I guess they're too busy making Ninja Turtles meet Karate Kid and Ninja Turtles meet Stranger Things to fully flesh out a a Ninja Turtles universe. Not that you'd necessarily want them. I know it's pretty. I know I'm being pretty harsh to Playmates, but they've been disappointing me. So here is what the NECA Mouser looks like next to them. He's just. I mean, I guess he'd be somewhat. If you think in their world, if a rat would be, maybe about that length, from your thumb to your pinky, maybe this would be a decent size for him to be eating rats in that universe. I don't know. They're still just a little too big, I guess. All right, now I have this Best AXN Michelangelo. What Loyal Subjects? Is that who makes these? I don't even remember. I've seen a couple of these guys. I've seen Donatello and stuff like that, but I've mostly passed on them. They haven't really been catching my eye. I think maybe some of the other mutants like Bebop and Rocksteady have looked fine, but I don't know. This is not in my opinion, this is not like the greatest Ninja Turtle action figure or anything like that. You have to plug the back of his belt into a shell, which is, to me, it just seems very odd. But if you're curious, this is what this Mouser looks like next to this Michelangelo. Probably decent size, That mixes pretty well. All right, so now we have one more Ninja Turtle toy line to go over that I own. All right, that's not NECA. Before we do the big NECA compare, all right? So you have the Ninja Turtle Ultimates by Super 7. This Mouser came with Baxter Stockman. It was pretty awesome. The first one we got was the glow-in-the-dark with the glow-in-the-dark Baxter Stockman. Both of them are very neat. They're obviously inspired by the original 1989 Mouser, the wacky action feature one, but he does not have the wacky action feature. He does not walk. He doesn't have all the extra stickers and stuff like that, right? So he looks cool. He looks nice next to Leonardo here. And then you plop out there, you put out the NECA Mouser. And, obviously the NECA Mouser looks a little more, I don't know if you'd say realistic, but maybe a little more mature or something like that. He doesn't have those bright blue colors. He's not like, I don't know, the way that guy is colored, it seems more eye-catching, where this guy is more like practical or something like that. In my opinion, he looks really good next to Leonardo still. I could see having your Ultimates fight these NECA Mousers because they are a pretty good size. They're also, I guess Super 7 is putting out that Mouser pack, so you can get an army builder Mousers. You don't have to buy multiple Baxters to do it. So, whether you have the Super 7 Mouser or the NECA Mouser, I think both of them look pretty nice next to this Leonardo, as well as the other Ninja Turtle Ultimates action figures. So while I do like the Super 7 Ultimates Mouser, he is very stiff. You're pretty much angling him straight up like this all the time. If you try to angle him too far forward, you can, but you can't lift up the head to make it look like he's actually going and attacking somebody. He looks like he's trying to get something off the ground, unfortunately. He does not tip over, though, luckily. So it seems like these big feet balance him out pretty well. But as I said, he's pretty stiff. You only have articulation right here in the hip. You've got nothing down here. And the head just twists around. That's it. And the mouth opens and closes. So, cool Mouser, I feel like the NECA one kind of edges it out a little more because you have all those points of articulation and you can get all the different expressions and, looks. You see that? It looks like the Super 7 one is lowering his head to his enemy and the NECA one is going to go and bite his face off. All right, so first up among the NECA comparisons, you have the Mouser from the Mirage series. Now, this is actually the last Mouser I'm going to talk about, and then after that, I'm just going to show you what these Mousers look like next to the, some of the other NECA series. But, this Mouser was pretty cool looking. They did a pretty decent job of matching some of the details from the comic book, perfectly. Like this rectangle shape here in the hip joints, the way that area is detailed in the jaw. Not to mention he also has like the bottom here with the little door so you can take out the rat carcasses. Even inside the mouth, he's got those like kind of squares like I showed you in earlier from the comic book, right? The only thing that I would say about this Mouser is the head does just not have the right shape, you know? Like, the head should be, like, elongated. As I said before, you know, it should almost look like a sausage link, somewhat kind of like a bean, you know? Here it's very round. You know, it's a little stunted, a little too short. So, how does this look next to this brand new NECA Mouser? Well, here you go. Now, you see, you could definitely see the cartoon influence on this Mouser because you don't have all these extra details, right? You just have like black circles in these areas instead of, you know, the finer bolts and nuts and all that kind of stuff. But the head looks more like the head as it appears in the original Mirage comic books. So it's, you know, it's kind of a mix here. Maybe you could like paint this thing to look more like a Mirage Mouser. Now, these Mousers originally came in a 3-pack that was like it was a convention exclusive. For some reason I never bought that, and now it's like super crazy expensive, and you know, I kick myself every day for it. And then you could also pick up this April, and she came with 1 Mouser and a damaged Mouser. So even back then, you know, back when these Mousers were coming out, NECA was already making battle damaged Mousers, which is pretty cool. But yeah, you know, this, as I said, I keep on saying as I said, but I kind of, you know, this is cool for what it is. I think it looks nice as a Mirage Mouser, but just because you have the extra points of articulation in this guy, you have, you know, you have more things that you can do with it. See, if you take a look at this thing up close, you can see those rectangle shapes within the mouth. When you close his mouth, he kind of has a little bit of like an overbite. I think that, you know, the Mousers should have more of a underbite, or at least just have a more elongated snout like that. This Mouser only has, you know, the mouth opens and closes, the head turns around, and then the legs rotate like so. So, you know, you're not going to be able to do too many action things with him because he's still somewhat limited, still a little stiff, just like every other Mouser, except this one right here. So here's what this Mouser looks like next to the NECA movie action figures. You know, he obviously looks very cartoony, you know, next to these toys. You know, they all have a more realistic paint deco. Maybe you could paint this guy like a metallic silver and add in some of, like, you know, some extra detail for the bolts and nuts of the joints and stuff like that. But I mean, he's a decent size, you know. I think he looks like proportionately, I think he would fit in well. Like, you could see somebody who's kind of the size of Casey Jones kind of holding him. Like, if Baxter Stockman was a real person and he was holding him, he seems like he would fit in one of these characters' arms pretty well. So, you know, maybe you can do a custom. It's all up to you, man. Here's the Mousers next to some of NECA's Ninja Turtle arcade action figures. You know, just trying to pose this, I completely forgot just how tight these guys' joints are. Like, Leo and Mikey here are ridiculous. Baxter was good. Leatherhead was alright. But, my goodness gracious, Leo and Michelangelo and even that Slash figure, you can barely move them. They are so tight. So, of course, you know, I think these guys would work well with these guys because, I mean, these characters are pretty much the same exact sculpts as the Fred Wolf series, you know, just have a different deco. Maybe you could paint some arcade deco on these Mousers. I don't know. You don't really need it. I think you could probably just put these in here next to the arcade figures and that'd be fine. Now, what I wouldn't mind is if NECA decided to release more Mousers in some kind of, you know, another pack, but with different colors, because, you know, sometimes the Mousers in those arcade games, they have different colors in their joints. You know, I'd be perfectly down with that. That'd be perfectly fine with me. And finally, I better end this with this giant shot of these Mousers next to a ton of NECA Fred Wolf action figures. I mean, there are so many awesome action figures in this toy line, and I am so happy to, you know, introduce the Mousers to all of them. Just setting up this shot, you start getting ideas of cool ways that you can display these mousers, like a mouser trying to eat Mikey's pizza and he's going to smash him with his nunchuck. Or maybe the Rat King is getting revenge on that mouser for trying to go after some of his minions, There's just so many cool things you can do with them. I'm so glad that NECA included, 4 perfect mousers and then a bunch of damaged mousers. And you know what makes me even happier than that? That I have a second set, Now I could do tons and tons and tons of stuff. Even these little, shredder spy flies, those guys are, pretty cool. As I said before, they could be a little better, but, at least I got 2 of them. They're really the kind of guys, though, that you needed, 6 of them in, a set or something like that. Maybe they didn't have to include a videotape in this mouser pack. Maybe you could have included more spy flies. I think that would have been a better choice. And now it makes me really happy to say, after a month and a half of working on this whenever I could, that this video is finally over. And hopefully I covered everything you wanted me to do. Hopefully I showed you these guys next to every Ninja Turtle toy line you were curious about. Obviously I don't have the Batman Ninja Turtle toys. People tell me all the time to get them, but I just have not picked up any of them. So thanks for watching. Talk to you later and have a good one.